The first time, Orla Zenneth caught herself hiding her hands in her apron pockets while talking to Owen Yardley. She knew she was in trouble. She had worked at Yardley Ranch for 3 seasons now, ever since old Marcus Yardley had found her sleeping in his smallest barn and offered her work instead of calling the militia. The ranch sprawled across the western frontier hills like a green dream, famous throughout 5 territories for breeding horses so fine that nobles paid fortunes for a single yearling. Orla kept those horses shod, their stables fitted with proper ironwork, and every tool on the property sharp and true. Her forge sat at the edge of the compound, close enough to hear the whinny of mares and the thunder of hooves in the training paddock, far enough that the smoke would not bother the animals. She was good at her work, better than good. Marcus had told her more than once that she had hands blessed by whatever gods watched over metalworkers and horses both. The problem was those very hands looked like they had been dragged through a decade of hard labor, despite her being only 22 years old. Calloused palms thick as leather, fingers scarred from slips of the forge tongs and encounters with nervous horses, nails forever rimmed with soot no amount of scrubbing could lift. They were broad and strong, green-skinned like the rest of her, marked with old burns that had healed in pale ridges across her knuckles. Orc hands, working hands, ugly hands, she thought, though she would never say it aloud. Owen had other thoughts entirely, though she did not know it yet. He was the eldest son, 26 and heir to everything his father had built, and he moved through the ranch with an easy charm that made the stable hands laugh, and the visiting buyers relax their guard during negotiations. Tall and lean, with sun-darkened skin and brown hair that always looked like he had just run his fingers through it, Owen had a smile that crinkled the corners of his warm hazel eyes. People underestimated him because of that smile, because of the way he joked and teased, because he seemed to take nothing seriously. Orla had made that mistake herself in the beginning. She had learned better over the seasons. "You planning to shoe Dancer today, or are you just going to stare at her from across the paddock?" Owen asked, appearing at her elbow with the sudden silence of someone who had grown up around skittish animals. Orla jumped despite herself, then scowled to cover the reaction. Dancer was a 3-year-old gray mare from the ranch's prized Silvermane line, their most famous bloodline, descended from foundation stock that Marcus's grandfather had brought across the mountains 40 years ago. The mare stood in the paddock with her head high, nostrils flaring at some scent on the wind. "She is nervous today," Orla said, watching the way Dancer's ears swiveled. "I was giving her time to settle. Or you were putting off going near her because she caught your thumb last week." "My thumb is fine. You wore a bandage for 3 days." Orla shot him a look, then immediately regretted it because it meant meeting those hazel eyes, and Owen was looking at her with that expression he had been wearing more and more lately. Something warm and attentive that made her stomach do uncomfortable things. She shoved her hands into her apron pockets and turned back to the mare. "I have work to do," she said. "I know. I will help. Father wants Dancer ready for light saddle work by next week, and she cannot train properly if her hooves are not trimmed." He vaulted the fence with easy grace and approached the mare with a piece of apple in his palm, murmuring soft nonsense that made Dancer's ears prick forward. Owen had a gift with the horses that went beyond training. They trusted him the way they trusted few others, responding to the calm certainty in his voice and touch. Orla watched him stroke Dancer's neck, saw the mare's nervousness drain away, and felt something in her chest tighten. She climbed the fence with less grace, her farrier's toolbox heavy in her hand, and joined him in the paddock. Together they coaxed Dancer to the hitching post, where Orla could work without the mare dancing away. Owen held the lead rope with relaxed confidence while Orla began her examination, running her hands down Dancer's legs, checking each hoof for heat or tenderness. "You have good hands," Owen said quietly, watching her work. Orla nearly dropped the hoof she was holding. "What? Your hands?" "You have a good touch with the horses. They trust you." She set Dancer's hoof down carefully and reached for her rasp, not looking at him. "They trust anyone who does not hurt them." "Not true. Dancer threw a fit when Jacob tried to trim her hooves last month. You remember. He had to give up and wait for you to get back from town. Jacob is too rough. He tries to force them. And you do not. You listen to them." Owen's voice was warm, almost admiring, and Orla's hand stilled on the rasp handle. She made herself start working again, the rhythmic scrape of the rasp against the hoof filling the silence. This was dangerous territory. She could feel it the way she could feel a forge's heat or a storm building in the air. Owen had been seeking her out more often over the past month, finding excuses to work alongside her, to bring her water on hot days, to ask her opinion on things that had nothing to do with her duties. She had been telling herself it meant nothing, that he was simply friendly, that she was imagining the way his gaze lingered. But she was not imagining anything, and the truth of it terrified her. "There," she said, finishing Dancer's final hoof and straightening up. "She is done. The shoes are still good for another month, but I will check them weekly. Thank you." Owen rubbed Dancer's forehead and the mare lipped at his shirt. "Father is hosting a dinner tomorrow night, buyers from the Eastern Territories. He asked me to invite you." Orla stared at him. "Why would I attend a buyer's dinner?" "Because you are part of this ranch. Because the buyers always want to see the facilities and you maintain half of them. Because Father values your opinion." Owen's smile turned a shade more careful. "Because I would like you there." The toolbox suddenly felt very heavy. Orla hefted it and turned toward the gate. "I am a farrier. I do not belong at your father's table with buyers and nobles." "Orla, I have work to do," she said again, and this time she did not stop when he called her name. She fled to her forge, to the familiar heat and the honest work of metal and fire, and told herself she was being sensible. She told herself this right up until the moment that evening when Owen found her sitting on the bench outside her small cottage, staring at her hands in the fading light. He sat down beside her without asking, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him in the cooling air. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The ranch settled into its evening rhythms around them, horses nickering in the pastures, the distant sound of the stable hands finishing their work, the first stars pricking through the purple sky. "Why do you do that?" Owen asked finally. "Do what? Hide your hands. Pull away when I get close. Act like you are not worth speaking to." His voice was gentle, but there was something underneath it, something that sounded almost like hurt. Orla kept her eyes on her hands, resting palm up on her knees. In the dusk, the scars showed pale against her green skin. "I am not hiding anything. This is what I am. A worker. Someone who shoes horses and mends fences and fixes broken gates. You say that like it is a bad thing. I say that like it is the truth." She made herself look at him, made herself say the words before her courage failed. "My hands are only good for work." "Look at them, Owen. They are scarred and calloused and rough. They are orc hands working hands, and that is all they will ever be." She expected him to look away, to make some polite noise and change the subject the way people did when confronted with uncomfortable truths. She expected him to finally understand what she had been trying to tell him with every deflection and every retreat. Instead, Owen reached down and took her right hand in both of his, turning it over, tracing the lines of calluses and scars with his fingers. His touch was impossibly gentle. "I see strength," he said quietly. "I see skill. I see hands that gentle dancer when she was so frightened she would not let anyone near her. Hands that built the new watering system that keeps the foals healthy. Hands that repaired the training arena fence after that storm last spring, working in the rain because you knew we needed it done before the young horses could escape. He looked up at her, his hazel eyes serious in a way she had rarely seen. I see hands I would trust with anything precious, including my heart. Orla's breath caught. Owen, you cannot, why not? He still held her hand, his thumb stroking across her knuckles. Give me one reason that is not about what other people might think or what you have decided you are worth. Because I am an orc. Because you are the heir to all of this. She gestured at the ranch with her free hand. Because when you marry, it should be to someone who can help you with the buyers and the nobles, someone who knows how to move in those circles, not someone who is more comfortable in a forge than a dining room. What if I do not want someone who is comfortable in dining rooms? Owen asked. What if I want someone who understands the real work of this place, who loves the horses as much as I do, who makes me laugh even when she is trying to scold me for bothering her while she works? His smile was small and almost shy. What if I want you, Orla, just exactly as you are? She wanted to believe him. Oh, she wanted to believe him with an intensity that frightened her. But the weight of every year she had spent being told that orcs were lesser, that her kind was fit only for labor and fighting, that she should be grateful for any scraps of kindness thrown her way, all of it pressed down on her like a physical force. You do not know what you are asking, she whispered. Then tell me, help me understand. He was still holding her hand, and his earnestness was almost painful to witness. Orla closed her eyes. I grew up in a work camp, did you know that? My mother died when I was 8. My father when I was 12. I was passed from overseer to overseer, taught that my only value was in how much I could lift, how long I could work, how well I could follow orders. When I escaped, I had nothing. No family, no trade, no prospects. I taught myself farrier work by watching smiths in the towns I passed through, by practicing in secret, by burning my hands over and over until I learned to read the heat of metal properly. She opened her eyes and looked at him. These hands, they are proof that I survived. But they are also proof of what I am. A laborer. That is all I have ever been allowed to be. Owen was quiet for a long moment, his expression troubled. Then, with careful deliberation, he released her hand and reached to his own, sliding off the heavy signet ring he wore on his right hand. It was gold, set with a dark green stone, engraved with the Yardley Ranch brand, a running horse surrounded by laurel leaves. He had worn it every day since his father had given it to him on his 21st birthday, the mark of his place as heir. What are you doing? Orla asked, her voice strangely hoarse. Owen took her right hand again, the one he had been holding, and turned it palm up. He placed the ring in the center of her calloused palm, then folded her fingers closed around it, covering her hand with both of his. These hands, he said, his voice low and fervent, are exactly the ones I want to hold my ring, the ones I want to hold my future, the ones I want to reach for when I wake up and the ones I want to hold when I go to sleep. He met her eyes, and there was no hesitation in his gaze, no doubt. You think they are only good for work? I think they are good for anything you choose to do with them, including loving someone, including letting someone love you back. Orla stared at the ring, at her hand wrapped around it, at Owen's hands covering hers. Her throat felt tight, her eyes burning with tears she refused to let fall. I do not know how, she whispered. I do not know how to be what you need. You already are, Owen said simply. Just be yourself. Be the woman who sings to the forge when she thinks no one is listening. Be the one who sneaks extra oats to the old gelding because he is her favorite. Be the one who tells me I am being an idiot when I am about to make a mistake with the training schedule." His smile turned tender. "Be Orla. That is all I am asking." She looked at him, at the man who had somehow seen past every wall she had built, who had looked at her worst fears and answered them with his ring in her palm, and felt something inside her shift and settle. It was not that the fear disappeared. It was that for the first time she thought maybe she was brave enough to face it. "I am terrified," she admitted. "Good," Owen said. "So am I." That surprised a laugh out of her, watery and small. You are never afraid." "I am afraid all the time. I am afraid of disappointing my father, of failing the ranch, of not being worthy of what I have been given." He squeezed her hand gently. "But I am most afraid of losing you because I was not brave enough to tell you how I feel." Orla took a shaky breath. "I should give this back to you. It is your signet ring. I want you to keep it, for now if nothing else, until you believe that I mean what I am saying." Owen's smile turned a little playful, a little of his usual brightness returning. "Besides, it is good insurance. You cannot avoid me if you have to return my ring eventually." "I do not avoid you. You ran away from me 3 times today alone." That was not running, that was going back to work, very quickly, with a panicked expression. Despite everything, Orla felt herself smile. "You are insufferable, but charmingly so," Owen asked hopefully. She opened her hand and looked at the ring again, at the weight of it, the significance. The gold caught the last of the evening light. "I cannot promise I will know what to do, how to be, whatever this is. Then we will figure it out together." Owen stood, pulling her up with him. "Starting with you coming to dinner tomorrow night. Not as the farrier, as my guest, please." Orla slipped the ring onto her thumb, the only finger thick enough to hold it securely. It felt strange there, heavy and foreign, and yet somehow right. "I do not have anything suitable to wear to a dinner with buyers. Wear what you would wear any evening. The buyers can accept you as you are, or they can take their business elsewhere." There was a note of steel under Owen's light words, the hint of the man who would one day run this ranch and would not compromise on what mattered. "Your father might have something to say about that." "My father invited you himself. He values you, Orla, more than you know." Owen took her other hand, the one without the ring, and squeezed it gently. "Trust me, please. Just this once, trust that maybe you are worth more than you think." She wanted to argue, to list all the reasons this was a bad idea, but the words would not come. Instead, she found herself nodding, watching Owen's face light up with a joy so pure it made her chest ache. "Tomorrow evening, then," he said. "I will come get you an hour before sunset. I know when dinner is. I have lived here for 3 seasons." "Yes, but if I do not come get you, you will convince yourself not to come." He was right, and they both knew it. Orla shook her head, but she was smiling despite herself. "Go, I am sure you have work to do, always." But Owen did not move immediately. Instead, he lifted her hand, the one with his ring on her thumb, and pressed a kiss to her scarred knuckles. "Thank you for giving me a chance." Then he was gone, striding back toward the main house with his usual easy gait, leaving Orla standing outside her cottage with a ring on her thumb, and her heart beating too fast in her chest. She looked at the ring again, at her rough, calloused hand, and for the first time in her life wondered if maybe she had been wrong about what these hands could hold. The next evening, Orla stood in her small cottage and stared at the 3 dresses she owned with something approaching despair. One was a work dress, practical and already stained with forged soot. One was the dress she wore to town on the rare occasions she needed to look presentable, plain gray homespun that hung on her like a sack. The third was a dress she had bought on impulse 6 months ago and never worn, deep green linen that the merchant had sworn would suit her coloring. She had thought he was trying to make a sale. Now, holding it up, She wondered if maybe he had been telling the truth. The dress fit better than she remembered, the green nearly matching her skin tone but somehow making it look intentional, even beautiful. It had simple lines, a scooped neck and long sleeves, nothing fancy enough to embarrass her at a buyer's dinner. She brushed out her black hair, which usually lived in a practical braid, and left it loose around her shoulders. No jewelry except Owen's ring still on her thumb. When she heard his knock, her stomach tried to climb into her throat. Owen's expression when she opened the door was worth every moment of anxiety. He stared at her, his mouth slightly open, and for once seemed at a loss for words. "Is it wrong?" Orla asked, resisting the urge to tug at the dress. "I can change." "No," Owen said quickly. "No, do not change. You look." He seemed to search for the right word and settled on something simple and true. "Beautiful. You look beautiful." Orla felt heat rise in her cheeks, her tusks suddenly feeling too prominent when she smiled. "Thank you." He offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. They walked together toward the main house, which glowed with lamplight in the gathering dusk. Orla could hear voices and laughter from inside, the sounds of the dinner party already beginning. "Just so you know," Owen said quietly as they climbed the porch steps, "I told my father about us." "About my intentions?" Orla's steps faltered. "What did he say?" "He said it was about time I stopped dancing around you and made my feelings clear." Owen's smile was warm. "He likes you, Orla. He has since the day he found you in the barn, and you told him you would work off the value of the hay you had eaten if he would give you a chance. I thought he would have me arrested. He thought you were the bravest person he had met in years." Owen opened the door and led her inside. "You still are." The dining room was full of people, buyers from the Eastern Territories dressed in fine clothes and wearing expensive jewelry, stable masters who worked for noble houses, a few local ranchers who dealt in less prestigious bloodlines. Marcus Yardley stood at the head of the table, a big man gone gray and weathered but still commanding, and his face creased into a genuine smile when he saw Orla. "There you are," he said, coming forward to clasp her hand in his. "I am glad you came. Gentlemen, this is Orla Zenneth, our master farrier and metalworker. The ranch would fall apart without her." The buyers murmured polite greetings, though Orla saw a few pairs of eyes widen slightly at her appearance, at the green skin and tusks that marked her as Orc. She lifted her chin and met their gazes steadily, refusing to flinch or apologize for what she was. Owen pulled out a chair for her, seating her between himself and his father, a position of honor that was not lost on anyone in the room. She settled into the seat, hyper-aware of every movement, every eye on her. The dinner began, and to Orla's surprise, Marcus drew her into the conversation almost immediately, asking her opinion on hoof health and proper stable ventilation and the best metals for different types of tack. The buyers listened with varying degrees of interest, some genuinely curious, others clearly just being polite. Owen kept up a steady stream of charm and wit, making people laugh, easing any tension before it could build. Halfway through the main course, one of the buyers, a portly man with elaborate mustaches, leaned forward and addressed Owen. "I hear the Silvermane line has been particularly successful this year. Your father mentioned you have several promising 3-year-olds. "We do," Owen agreed. "Dancer is our star, but we have 2 others showing exceptional quality, strong, smart, and trainable. I would be interested in seeing them before I leave. My employer is looking to improve his breeding stock. Of course, we can arrange a viewing tomorrow." Owen glanced at Orla. "Though I should warn you that the Silvermane line is temperamental. They require handlers who understand them, which is why we are selective about sales." The buyer looked slightly taken aback by that, but Marcus nodded approvingly. My son is right. We do not sell to just anyone, regardless of the price offered. Our reputation is built on matching the right horses with the right owners. Another buyer, a younger woman with sharp eyes, spoke up. I heard you turned down Lord Westbrook's offer last month. 3 times your asking price, and you still refused him. Lord Westbrook has a reputation for mistreating his animals, Marcus said flatly. No amount of money is worth contributing to that. The conversation moved on, but Orla noticed the respect in the buyer's eyes had deepened. This was why the Yardley Ranch was famous, she realized. Not just for the quality of their horses, but for the integrity of their dealings. After dinner, Owen walked her back to her cottage under a sky brilliant with stars. The night was cool, smelling of grass and horses and the distant smoke of her banked forge. They moved slowly, neither quite ready for the evening to end. That was not as terrible as I feared, Orla admitted. Owen laughed. High praise. You were wonderful, by the way. You knew more about horse health than half the buyers in that room. That is my job. It is more than a job, it is a calling. Owen stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. You belong here, Orla, not just as the farrier, as part of this family. I hope you are starting to see that. She looked at their joined hands, at the ring still circling her thumb, at the way his fingers laced with hers so naturally. I am trying. That is all I ask. He lifted her hands and kissed each of her palms, right over the calluses and scars. Will you trust me with something? What? The breeding season is starting soon. We will need extra help monitoring the mares as they foal. Father usually hires temporary workers, but I want to ask you to help instead, not just with the metalwork, but with the actual foaling. You have a gift with the animals, and I think they would be calmer with you there. Owen's expression turned earnest. It would also give us more time together, if you want that. Orla's heart did something complicated in her chest. I would need to learn. I have never assisted with a foaling. I will teach you. We have a few weeks before the first mares are due. Please, Orla, work with me on this. Let me show you that you are more than just the farrier. She thought about saying no, about retreating to the safety of her forge and her familiar duties. But Owen's ring was warm on her thumb, and his hope was bright in his eyes, and she found she did not want to disappoint him. All right, she said softly. I will help with the foaling. Owen's answering smile could have lit the night. He pulled her into a hug, sudden and warm and smelling of hay and leather and something that was just him. Orla stiffened for only a moment before her arms came up to wrap around him, her face pressed against his shoulder. Thank you, he murmured into her hair. You will not regret this. As she lay in bed that night, the ring carefully placed on her bedside table, Orla wondered if he was right. She wondered if maybe, impossibly, she had found something worth being brave for. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest of Orla's life, though she would not have admitted it aloud. She rose early each morning to work the forge, completing her regular duties before joining Owen in the breeding barns. He taught her the signs of impending labor in the mares, how to check their progress without causing distress, how to recognize when a foaling was going well and when intervention was needed. She learned that Owen's playfulness disappeared when he worked with the pregnant mares, replaced by a focused intensity that reminded her he was his father's son, heir to a legacy that stretched back generations. He was patient and thorough, never rushing her learning, always taking the time to explain not just what to do but why. They spent long hours together in the barns, checking on the mares, preparing the foaling stalls with fresh straw and clean water. The work was quieter than forge work, more about observation and patience, and Orla found herself settling into it with unexpected comfort. You are a natural, Owen told her one afternoon as they watched a chestnut mare named Copper pace her stall. She was due any day now, and her restlessness suggested it might be tonight. "I just do what you tell me." "You do more than that. You anticipate their needs. You know when to step in and when to give them space." Owen leaned against the stall door beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. "It is the same gift you have in the forge. You listen to what things need instead of forcing your will on them." Orla turned that over in her mind, considering it. "I never thought of it that way." Most people do not. They think strength is about control, about bending things to your purpose, but real strength knows when to yield. Owen glanced at her, his expression soft. "You are the strongest person I know, Orla." She did not know what to say to that, so she changed the subject. "Do you think Copper will foal tonight?" "Probably. We should plan to take shifts watching her." Owen hesitated. "Unless you would rather I handle it alone. You have been working long hours." "I want to help," Orla said firmly. "If we are doing this together, I am not going to abandon you when it matters most." Something in Owen's face shifted, a warmth that went beyond simple gratitude. "Together." I like the sound of that. Copper did indeed foal that night, a long and difficult labor that lasted until dawn. The mare struggled, her contractions ineffective, and at one point, Owen had to reach in and manually reposition the foal, his jaw tight with concentration and fear. Orla held Copper's head, murmuring to her in the orcish tongue her mother had taught her, old words about strength and courage and the power of bringing new life into the world. When the foal finally slipped free, wet and gangly and perfect, Owen sat back with shaking hands and tears on his face. The foal was a filly, dark bay like her mother with a white star on her forehead. "She is beautiful," Orla whispered, watching the filly struggle to her feet. "She almost did not make it." Owen's voice was hoarse. "If the positioning had been any worse, we could have lost them both." Orla put her hand on his shoulder, squeezing gently. "But we did not. You saved them." "We saved them," Owen corrected. He stood slowly, watching Copper nuzzle her new daughter. "I could not have kept her calm without you. That singing, what was that? Old orc foaling songs. My mother taught them to me. She said they were older than memory, passed down from before orcs were scattered and displaced." Orla felt a pang of old grief. "I have not sung them in years." Owen turned to her, his expression fierce despite his exhaustion. "They are beautiful. You are beautiful. Your whole heritage, your strength, your knowledge, all of it is a gift, Orla. I wish you could see yourself the way I see you." She wanted to kiss him. The urge came sudden and strong, and it must have shown on her face because Owen's eyes widened, his breath catching. They stood frozen for a heartbeat, covered in sweat and birthing fluids, exhausted and exhilarated. And then Orla closed the distance and pressed her lips to his. Owen made a soft sound of surprise, and then his arms came around her, pulling her close. The kiss was gentle and searching, tasting of salt and joy and the promise of something neither of them had quite dared to name. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Owen rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said quietly. "I know it is too soon to say it. I know we are still figuring this out, but I love you and I need you to know it." Orla's hands fisted in his shirt, her heart beating so hard she thought it might break free. "I love you too," she whispered, the words feeling like a confession and a victory all at once. "I am terrified and I do not know what I am doing, but I love you." Owen's laugh was breathless and bright. "That makes two of us." They kissed again, longer this time, until Copper snorted impatiently and reminded them they had work to do. They cleaned up the foaling stall, made sure the filly was nursing properly, and checked Copper's health. By the time they stumbled out of the barn, the sun was fully up, and the ranch was coming to life around them. Marcus found them at breakfast, bleary-eyed and grinning like fools, and took one look at their faces before breaking into a knowing smile. "Copper foaled, a filly," Owen confirmed. "Perfect, strong. Orla was incredible. I am sure you both were." Marcus poured himself coffee and sat down across from them. "We have 6 more mares due in the next 3 weeks, including 3 Silvermanes. I hope you are both prepared for some sleepless nights." "We are ready," Orla said, and felt the truth of it settle into her bones. The next mare to foal was Dancer, their prize Silvermane, and everything went wrong. It started normally enough. Dancer went into labor on a cool spring evening, and Owen and Orla settled in to monitor her progress. But after several hours of ineffective contractions, Dancer began to show signs of distress. She was sweating heavily, her eyes rolling with pain and fear, and when Owen examined her, his face went grim. "The foal is breech," he said. "I cannot turn it. It is too far into the birth canal." "What do we do?" Orla asked, fear sharp in her throat. "Get my father." "We might need to," Owen's voice cracked. "We might not be able to save them both." Orla ran for Marcus, her heart pounding. By the time they returned, Dancer was down on her side, her breathing labored. Marcus took one look and began barking orders, sending stable hands for supplies, for the traveling veterinarian who lived an hour's ride away, for anything that might help. For 3 hours they fought for Dancer and her foal, and in the end they won, but barely. The foal was a colt, small and weak, who had to be rubbed vigorously to start breathing. Dancer hemorrhaged and required stitching, her recovery uncertain. By the time it was done, Owen was pale and shaking, and Marcus looked like he had aged 10 years. "That is the 3rd difficult foaling this season," Marcus said quietly, washing blood from his hands. 3 out of 4. That is not normal." "Bad luck," Owen suggested, but he did not sound convinced, or something wrong with the line. Marcus stared at the exhausted Dancer, at her struggling colt. "We need to watch the next births carefully. If we lose a Silvermane foal or mare, it could destroy our reputation. Buyers pay premium prices because our bloodlines are strong and healthy. If word gets out that we are having problems, it will not," Owen said firmly. "We will figure this out." But over the next week, 2 more Silvermane mares foaled with complications. One lost her foal entirely, a filly that was born already dead. The other required intervention similar to Dancer's, and though both mare and foal survived, the colt was sickly and weak. Marcus called a meeting in his study, his face haggard. Owen was there, and to Orla's surprise, Marcus gestured for her to join them. "This is a disaster," Marcus said without preamble. 4 Silvermane births and only 2 healthy foals, 1 dead, 2 in questionable health. I have 3 more Silvermane mares due to foal in the next 2 weeks. If those births go badly as well, we are finished. The Eastern buyers were here specifically to see our Silvermane stock. Word is already spreading that we are having problems." "How?" Owen demanded. "One of the stable hands has family working at the competing ranches. They talk." Marcus rubbed his face. "Gerard Finch from Thornhill Ranch has already sent a messenger offering to buy our remaining Silvermane breeding stock at a steep discount. He is circling like a vulture." Orla knew Finch by reputation. Thornhill Ranch was their nearest competitor, larger but less prestigious, and Finch had been trying to acquire Silvermane bloodlines for years. He was shrewd and ruthless, willing to undercut prices and spread rumors to weaken his competition. "We are not selling to Finch," Owen said flatly. "We might not have a choice. If I cannot assure buyers that our bloodlines are sound, they will go elsewhere. And if the next births go badly," Marcus shook his head, "we could lose everything my family has built." Silence fell heavy in the study. Orla looked between the two men, saw the fear and determination warring in their faces, and felt something click into place in her mind. "What if it is not the bloodline?" she said slowly. Both men turned to her. "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "You said this only started this season. Has anything else changed? New feed, new water source, anything different in how the pregnant mares are being kept?" Marcus frowned, thinking. "We are using the same feed supplier we have used for years, same water from the well, same stabling procedures." "But the breeding barn was repaired before winter," Owen said slowly. "We replaced the old wood, painted everything, improved the ventilation. I supervised it myself." Orla stood, her mind racing. "Show me the barn, everything that was changed." They walked through the breeding barn together, Orla examining every detail with the methodical eye she usually reserved for forge work. She checked the new wood, the paint, the improved vents that Owen had been so proud of. She ran her hands over the stall doors, breathed in the air, studied the layout. And then she found it. The new water troughs in each stall were beautiful, made of copper that gleamed in the lamplight. Owen had commissioned them specially, wanting the best for the pregnant mares. "When were these installed?" Orla asked, her voice tight. 2 months before breeding season," Owen said. "Why?" Orla dipped her hand in the water, then brought it to her nose. There was a faint metallic tang. "Copper is toxic to horses in large amounts. Not immediately fatal, but if they are drinking from these troughs every day, consuming their water exclusively from them, it builds up in their system. Pregnant mares would be especially vulnerable. It would not kill them, but it would stress their bodies, make labor more difficult, weaken the foals." Owen stared at her in horror. "No, I chose copper because it is supposed to be better, more sanitary for humans," Orla said gently. "Not for horses, especially not for daily use over months." "Owen, this is not your fault. You were trying to do something good." "I poisoned them," Owen whispered. "I poisoned our own horses." Marcus was already moving, his face set. "We switch out every trough tonight, wood or stone, something we know is safe. And we start supplementing the remaining pregnant mares with whatever will help counteract the copper exposure." "Orla, what do they need?" Orla thought back to her mother's teachings, to old orc knowledge about healing animals, to things she had half forgotten from her childhood. "Fresh grazing as much as possible, clay mixed into their feed to help draw out toxins, clean water from sources they trust, and time. Their bodies will heal, but slowly. The 3 mares still due to foal might not have time," Marcus said grimly. "Then we monitor them constantly. We give them every advantage we can." Orla looked at Owen, who still looked stricken. "And we do not give up on them. The bloodline is strong. You said it yourself. This is just an obstacle, not a death sentence." Marcus gripped her shoulder. "You may have just saved this ranch, girl." "We do not know that yet," Orla said, but she felt a fierce hope kindling in her chest. They worked through the night replacing the troughs, mixing clay supplements, moving the pregnant mares to pasture during the day where they could graze on fresh grass. Orla consulted every half-remembered scrap of animal lore she possessed, and what she did not know, she reasoned out through sheer determination. Owen worked beside her silently, his earlier playfulness buried under guilt and fear. Orla watched him push himself to exhaustion, checking and rechecking every detail, and finally caught his arm. "This was not your fault," she said firmly. "I should have known. I should have researched better, asked more questions. You made a choice based on the information you had. That is all anyone can do." Orla took his face in her hands, making him meet her eyes. "You are a good man, Owen Yardley. You care about these animals more than anyone I have ever met. One mistake does not change that. What if it is too late? What if the next foals? Then we deal with it together. but we do not surrender before the fight is finished." She kissed him, hard and quick. "Trust me. I know what it is like to be told you are worthless because of circumstances beyond your control. Do not do that to yourself." Owen closed his eyes and pulled her close, holding on like she was an anchor in a storm. "What did I do to deserve you? You put your ring in my hands," Orla said simply, "and you meant it." The next Silvermane mare to foal was a dappled gray named Whisper, and her labor was long but mercifully normal. The foal, a sturdy colt, was born healthy and vigorous. When Whisper stood and began nursing him, Owen actually sobbed with relief. 2 days later, the second mare foaled just as smoothly. And 3 days after that, the final Silvermane mare delivered twin fillies, rare and precious, both perfect. Word spread through the ranch like wildfire. The Silvermane line was secure. The crisis had passed. Gerard Finch showed up 2 days later, clearly expecting to find the Yardleys desperate and willing to sell. Instead, he found Marcus in excellent spirits, showing off 5 healthy Silvermane foals to a group of very interested buyers. Orla watched from the forge as Finch's face went red, then purple, before he stormed off without even making an offer. She was still grinning when Owen found her an hour later. "My father wants to throw a celebration," Owen said. "A feast for everyone who worked through the crisis. He is insisting you be guest of honor." Orla wiped soot from her hands. "I just figured out the problem. You and Marcus did the real work. You saved our breeding line. You saved the ranch." Owen came closer, his expression serious. "My father knows it. The buyers know it. I know it. Please, Orla. Let people celebrate you. Let them see what I see when I look at you." She glanced down at her hands, at the ring she had taken to wearing on a chain around her neck during forge work to keep it safe. "What do you see? A woman who is brilliant and kind and brave. A woman who does not know how extraordinary she is, but who I am going to spend the rest of my life proving it to." Owen took her hands, soot and all. "Marry me, Orla." The world seemed to tilt. "What? Marry me?" "I know we have only been courting for a few weeks. I know people will say it is too fast, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life." Owen's voice was fervent, his hazel eyes locked on hers. "You belong here. With me, with this ranch, with this life. I want to wake up beside you every morning. I want to work alongside you every day. I want to build something lasting with you, not just foals and horses, but a family, a future, everything." He squeezed her hands. "Say yes, please." Orla felt tears prick her eyes, her throat tight with emotion. "I am an orc. People will talk. They will say terrible things, let them. I do not care what anyone says as long as you are with me." Owen smiled, bright and certain. "You taught me that real strength is knowing when to yield. I am yielding my heart to you, Orla Zenneth. Completely and without reservation. Please tell me you will have it." She thought about the woman she had been when she first came to this ranch, sleeping in a barn, convinced she was worth nothing more than the work her hands could do. She thought about all the walls she had built to protect herself, all the ways she had tried to make herself small and invisible and safe. And then she thought about Owen placing his ring in her palm, about singing foaling songs while Copper labored, about the way he looked at her like she was precious and necessary and loved. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." Owen's shout of joy echoed across the ranch. He picked her up and spun her around, heedless of the forge soot transferring to his clothes, laughing with pure happiness. When he set her down, he kissed her thoroughly, and Orla kissed him back, her scarred hands tangling in his hair, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "I do not have a ring for you," she said when they finally pulled apart. "I did not think. You have my ring, the one I gave you that first night." Owen pulled back enough to lift the chain from around her neck, sliding his signet ring free. "This is yours now, properly. as my wife-to-be." He slipped it onto her ring finger, and though it was too large, it settled there with a weight that felt like promise. "We will have it resized, but I want you to wear it. I want everyone to know you are mine and I am yours." Orla looked at the ring on her finger, at the engraved horse and laurels, at the mark of Owen's heritage and legacy. "Are you sure? This is your family ring. And you are my family now. The person I choose, the partner I want beside me for everything that comes." Owen kissed her forehead. "I love you, Orla. Every scarred, strong, beautiful part of you." "I love you too," she said, and this time the words came easily, naturally, like breathing. The celebration feast was held a week later, after the final Silvermane foals were stable and healthy. The entire ranch turned out, along with buyers and neighbors and everyone who had been involved in the crisis. Marcus stood and gave a speech about dedication and community, about the importance of every person who worked the ranch regardless of their role. And then he called Orla forward and presented her with a gift. A beautifully crafted leather apron embossed with the Yardley brand, marking her officially as part of the ranch's legacy. "You saved our bloodline," Marcus said, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. "You brought knowledge and skill and determination when we needed it most. More than that, you have been a gift to my son and to this family. We are honored to call you one of our own." The applause was thunderous. Orla stood at the front of the room, wearing her new apron over the green dress, Owen's ring glinting on her finger, and felt tears stream down her face. She saw acceptance in the faces around her, respect and gratitude and genuine warmth. Owen came to stand beside her, taking her hand and raising it high. "This woman has agreed to marry me," he announced, and the applause doubled, people cheering and whistling. "Which means you are all stuck with both of us for the foreseeable future." The celebration went late into the night, full of music and dancing and more food than Orla had seen in one place in her entire life. She danced with Owen under the stars, his arms around her waist, her head on his shoulder, and felt a peace she had never known settle into her bones. "Happy." Owen murmured against her hair. "Terrified," Orla admitted. "But yes, happy." "Good, because I plan to make you this happy every day for the rest of our lives." She tilted her head back to look at him, at the man who had seen past every defense and every fear to the person she was underneath. "That is a bold promise. I am a bold man. You should know this by now." Owen's smile was soft in the lamplight, though I hide it under charm and terrible jokes. "I know." Orla kissed him gently. "I know exactly who you are, Owen Yardley, and I love all of it." They were married 6 weeks later in the ranch's garden, surrounded by flowers and friends and the sound of horses nickering in the nearby pastures. Orla wore a dress of cream linen that Marcus had insisted on buying her, her hair braided with wildflowers. Owen's ring now properly resized on her finger beside a simple gold wedding band. Owen wore his best coat and could not stop smiling, even when the officiant had to remind him twice to pay attention during the vows. When the officiant pronounced them married, Owen kissed her like it was the first time and the last time and every time in between, and the gathered witnesses cheered themselves hoarse. The wedding feast was even larger than the celebration had been, with guests from neighboring ranches and buyers from territories away, and everyone who had any connection to the Yardley family. Orla found herself passed from person to person, receiving congratulations and blessings, and was surprised to find she did not feel overwhelmed. This was her community now, her home, her family. Late in the evening, when the dancing was in full swing and the wine was flowing freely, Marcus pulled her aside. "I want to give you something," he said, leading her to his study. From a locked drawer in his desk, he pulled out a leather-bound book. "This is the Yardley breeding record. Every horse we have bred for the past 40 years, their lineages, their health records, everything. It has been passed down through the family since my grandfather's time. Orla took the book carefully, feeling the weight of it, the history. Why are you giving this to me? Because you are family now. Because my son will inherit this ranch when I am gone, and you will stand beside him. Because you have proven yourself worthy of this legacy. Marcus smiled, and there was genuine affection in his weathered face. And because I think you will keep better records than Owen ever would. He gets distracted too easily. I heard that, Owen called from the doorway, grinning. You were meant to. Marcus clasped Orla's shoulder. Welcome to the family, daughter, officially and completely. Orla had to blink back tears for the second time that day. Thank you for everything. For giving me a chance when I was just a stranger in your barn, for trusting me with your horses, for accepting me. You earned every bit of it, Marcus said firmly. Now go, dance with your husband. Be young and happy. The responsibilities of running a ranch will come soon enough. Orla and Owen slipped away from the celebration before it ended, escaping to the small cottage on the edge of the property that had been expanded and renovated as their wedding gift from Marcus. It was larger than Orla's old cottage, with room for a proper bedroom and a sitting area, and even a small workshop where she could do delicate metalwork without heating the whole forge. Owen carried her over the threshold with exaggerated ceremony, making her laugh, and they tumbled onto the bed together, still dressed in their wedding finery, kissing and laughing and whispering promises. My wife, Owen said wonderingly, tracing the line of her jaw. I get to say that now. My wife. My husband, Orla replied, testing the word. It felt foreign and perfect all at once. I am married to you. You sound surprised. I am. A year ago I was sleeping in a barn. 6 months ago I was convinced I would never be anything but a worker, alone and unremarkable. And now I am married to you, part of your family, with a home and a future, and her voice broke. How did this happen? I put my ring in your hands, Owen said, kissing her palm, and you were brave enough to keep it. They made love slowly, tenderly, learning each other with touches and whispers and soft laughter when they fumbled. Owen was patient and sweet, making sure Orla felt cherished and safe, and when they finally lay tangled together in the darkness, both sated and drowsy, Orla felt a completeness she had not known was possible. I love you, she murmured against his chest. I love you too. Always. Owen tightened his arms around her. Sleep now. We have the rest of our lives to keep saying it. The seasons turned, and Orla settled into her new life as Owen's wife and partner in running the ranch. She continued her work at the forge, but expanded her role to include overseeing the foaling barn, her knowledge of animal health proving invaluable. The Silvermane line flourished, producing strong, healthy foals year after year, and the ranch's reputation grew even stronger. Word spread of the orc woman who had saved the famous bloodline, and Orla found herself consulted by other ranchers and breeders, her opinion sought and respected. It was strange and wonderful to be valued not despite her orcish heritage, but because of the unique knowledge it gave her. 2 years after their wedding, on a spring morning full of birdsong and the scent of apple blossoms, Orla realized she was pregnant. She told Owen that evening in the foaling barn, where they were checking on a mare due to deliver any day. Owen stared at her, his face cycling through shock and joy and terror in rapid succession. A baby, we are having a baby. Yes, in about 6 months, I think. Orla took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. Are you happy? Happy, I am, Owen's voice cracked. He pulled her into his arms, holding her carefully like she was made of glass. I am terrified and thrilled, and I love you so much. A baby, our baby. I am scared, Orla admitted. I do not know how to be a mother. What if I am not good at it? Owen pulled back enough to cup her face, his expression fierce and tender. You will be amazing. You are patient and strong, and you know how to nurture growing things. Look at what you do with the foals, the way you gentle them and teach them to trust. You will be a wonderful mother. Orla wanted to believe him, but the old fears lingered. What if her child inherited her orc features and faced prejudice? What if she could not protect them? What if she failed? As if reading her mind, Owen said, "Whatever comes, we face it together. Always. You and me and this child. We are a family." The pregnancy was healthy but not easy. Orla worked as long as she could, but eventually her growing belly made forge work difficult, and Owen fretted constantly about her overdoing it. Marcus hired a temporary farrier to handle the heavy work, freeing Orla to focus on lighter tasks and preparing for the baby. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn evening, Orla went into labor. It was long and painful, and there were moments when Orla was certain she could not continue, when the pain was too much and the fear too great. But Owen never left her side, holding her hand, wiping her face, murmuring encouragement and love, and eventually, just before dawn, their son was born. He was perfect, small and squalling, with green-tinted skin and the tiniest nubs of tusks, a shock of dark hair and Owen's hazel eyes. Orla held him against her chest, tears streaming down her face, and felt her heart expand to hold this new, fierce love. "He is beautiful," Owen whispered, touching their son's tiny hand with one finger. "He is perfect. What should we name him?" They had discussed names but never settled on one, both afraid to jinx things by choosing too early. Now, looking at her son, Orla thought of strength and new beginnings and the willow trees that grew by the creek. "William," she said, "after the willow trees, flexible and strong and impossible to break." "William Yardley," Owen said, testing the name. "I love it, I love him, I love you." He kissed her forehead, then their son's. "Thank you for giving me this, for giving us this." William grew into a sturdy, curious boy, equally at home in the forge and the stables, fascinated by horses and metalwork and everything his parents could teach him. He had Orla's green skin and Owen's charm, her strength and his playfulness, and people who met him inevitably smiled. There was prejudice, of course. Some people whispered about the half-orc child, about the impropriety of the marriage, about the dilution of bloodlines. But the Yardley Ranch's reputation was solid, Marcus's backing was unwavering, and most importantly, Owen and Orla presented a united front that dared anyone to speak against their family. More often than not, people looked at William and saw a happy child, well-loved and well cared for, and could not sustain their prejudice in the face of that reality. When William was 2, Orla became pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was easier, and their second son was born on a summer day full of sunshine. They named him Samuel, and he had more of Owen's features but Orla's quiet intensity. The boys grew up surrounded by horses and love, learning to read metal and animals and people with equal skill. They worked the ranch alongside their parents, part of the legacy that stretched back generations and would continue forward into the future. On William's 10th birthday, Marcus called the family together in his study. He was older now, his hair fully white, his movements slower, but his mind was as sharp as ever. "I am getting old," he said without preamble. "It is time to make things official. Owen, I am signing the ranch over to you. You and Orla have run it in everything but name for years now. It is time you had the title as well." Owen looked stunned. "Father, you do not have to, I do. I am tired, son. I want to spend my remaining years watching my grandchildren grow, not worrying about breeding schedules and buyer negotiations." Marcus smiled. "You are ready. You both are. The ranch will thrive under your care." The transition was smooth, eased by the fact that Owen and Orla had indeed been managing most operations for years. The buyers trusted them, the workers respected them, and the horses flourished under their joint attention. Orla continued to work the forge, though she trained apprentices now, passing on her knowledge to the next generation. She still supervised the foaling barn, still sang the old orc songs to laboring mares, still believed in the power of listening to what things needed instead of forcing them. Owen managed the breeding program and buyer relations with the same combination of charm and shrewd intelligence that had always served him well. Together, they expanded the ranch, acquired new bloodlines, and built on the legacy Marcus had given them. Years passed in the way of years, marked by seasons and foalings and the growth of their children. William and Samuel both proved talented with horses, though William showed more interest in the metalwork side while Samuel excelled at training. They talked sometimes of the future, of how the ranch might be divided between them, but those were distant concerns, softened by the knowledge that there was time. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Owen took Orla to the hill overlooking the ranch, the same place where they had sometimes escaped during their courtship. The valley spread below them, green and gold in the late summer sun, dotted with horses grazing peacefully. "You ever regret it?" Owen asked, his arm around her waist. Orla leaned into him, comfortable and content. "Regret what? This. Marrying me. Binding yourself to this place and this life. You could have gone anywhere, done anything." She turned in his arms to look at him properly. Owen was graying at the temples now, lines forming at the corners of his eyes, but he was still the man who had placed his ring in her palm all those years ago, still the one who had seen her worth when she could not see it herself. "I regret nothing," she said firmly. "This is exactly where I am meant to be. With you, with our children, with this life we have built together. You gave me everything I never knew I wanted, Owen Yardley. You gave me a home and a family and a future. You taught me that my hands were good for more than just work. You taught me I was worth loving." Owen's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You always were, I just helped you see it. Then that is your greatest achievement, not the ranch, not the bloodlines, not the wealth or reputation. You saved me." Orla kissed him softly. "And I will love you for it until the day I die and beyond." "I will hold you to that," Owen said, smiling. "Though I expect to go first, you are far too stubborn to die before me." Probably true. Orla laughed and settled back against him, both of them watching the sun paint the hills in shades of amber and rose. Below them, the ranch hummed with life and purpose, the product of generations of work and love and dedication. The Silvermane horses grazed in their pastures, their bloodline strong and healthy, their legacy secure. In the forge, one of Orla's apprentices was banking the fire for the night, the ring of hammer on anvil fading into evening silence. In the main house, William and Samuel were probably arguing good-naturedly about something, the way brothers did, while Marcus sat in his favorite chair and pretended not to hear. This was home. This was family. This was a life built by two people who had been brave enough to reach for something they thought was impossible, who had chosen each other despite every reason not to, who had worked and loved and grown together into something stronger than either could have been alone. Orla looked at her hands, no longer hidden or shameful but displayed openly, marked by her ring and her work and her life. The scars were still there, the calluses, the broad strength that had once made her weep with shame. But now when she looked at them, she saw all the things they had held, tools and reins, foals and children, Owen's hand in hers on their wedding day and every day since. "My hands are good for so much more than work," she said quietly. Owen lifted her scarred, strong, beautiful hands and kissed each palm. They always were. They hold my heart, after all, and they always will. The sun set over Yardley Ranch, painting the sky in colors that had no names, and Orla Zenneth Yardley stood with her husband and watched the world turn golden, knowing she was exactly where she belonged. The girl who had slept in a barn had become a woman who owned one, who had built a legacy and raised a family, and found a love that would last all her days. And it had all started with a ring placed in her palm, and the courage to believe she deserved it.